when you look at the significance of these touchstones throughout human history, and I think 9/11 was sort of our generation's Pearl Harbor. Because you think back, I just remember learning about Pearl Harbor in school, and my grandfather was a World War II veteran, and he was on the USS Alabama. And thinking, gosh, what was it like during those times? And it's crazy because, like, our grandkids are going to look back on 9/11 and wonder that about us living in that period. We had we were blessed to be able to go to Pearl Harbor a number of years ago with our kids and visit. And it was one of the most unforgettable experiences ever. And it's such an ironically situated place because it's in one of the most beautiful places in the world. It is just beautiful, stunning, absolutely stunning. The water, the mountains, the greenery, it's just beautiful. The breeze. And to have something so horrific happen 81 years ago. We were there and we looked over, we were everywhere. And we learned minute by minute what happened. Because I think in total, the full attack was a little over an hour. And in the end, 2,335 service members and 68 civilians lost their lives that day. And that's when it was that surprise raid. A total of 2,403 total. More than 1,100 people injured in the attack. And it destroyed quite a bit of our vessels. And one of the things that is fascinating, I watched this documentary because it always stayed with me when we were there and looking at, there's so many pictures and so much actual physical things to, just remains of ships that were blasted that they have saved. And you see everything. You see the USS Arizona. And it always amazed me because they were telling us about the time span that it took. It didn't take out our whole fleet, but it really kneecapped us. And American ingenuity and determination, we were able to, just in a span of several months, get turned around and be a force out on the seas in the Pacific again. And that's just something that seems unheard of today, does it not? I mean, it just unbelievable. And it was just wild to stand there in Pearl Harbor and look at the ridge over which those planes first flew that morning, and just unbelievable. And so they had, there were some warnings and responses. There was the movie that was done where Woody Harrelson was in it, and I was trying to remember. It was Midway. That was that's an amazing, because it starts out with what happened at Pearl Harbor. That's one of the most amazing films I've ever seen. Just the whole thing, it was an unforgettable experience. And we never could, because my grandfather, as I said, he was on USS Alabama. But for some reason, he ended up on the USS Missouri when the instrument of surrender was signed by the Japanese delegation. MacArthur was there. When you go on the USS Missouri today, there is a marker on the deck showing where everyone stood and where the surrender was signed. And it was odd that, to me, we never understood it. And we learned, about this when my grandfather was receiving treatment at the VA. He happened to have been on the USS Missouri when that was signed. And that was something that we had a family member was able to confirm, but we could never figure out why. And his reasoning, which his brother contradicted, his reasoning was that, it's because I was from Missouri and this was a newer ship and they wanted, someone from Missouri on it. Maybe, I don't know. But actually, as it turned out, one of the things that his brother said was that, no, it's because he's 6'4". And I've never been able to confirm, the report, but it has been said with all the veterans who were there and some people who were in military who had knowledge of what was going on when they were planning to receive the Japanese delegation, They wanted the tallest sailors lining up and on the deck when the delegation came aboard as a intimidation tactic, which is brilliant, actually. And what my great uncle had said, that was the reason that he was on the deck, because he's 6'4", tall, lanky. I mean, he was huge, 6'4". I mean, I think he's pushing. So I think it was a little beyond that. He was tall. He was always tall and lean. And that's why. Which is, I mean, I've never been able to confirm it, but it's just, I find it fascinating. It's just a little bit, fascinating history. But when we took our kids to visit, it was just stunning. The weight of all of that. You're humbled by how small the world can be, while it simultaneously seems so big, and history is just so immense. Because my kids were running around on the deck of the USS Missouri, taking pictures of the guns and everything. And all these years before, my grandfather had stood on that deck. It's just wild. Just wild how that unfolds. So 81 years ago today, day that lives in infamy, but it's a day that it's often said that the giant was awakened. And the United States responded. I was looking in my notes, how long after Pearl Harbor that because there were so many things there was so much of our fleet was hit. They said that within 3 months it was USS, because we had to save the U.S. fleet, and it took like several weeks after to clean up, to salvage crews to get everything ready, to get everything cleaned up. And apparently Yamamoto could not have they never realized how quickly, how determined the United States was. In fact, only 6 months after Pearl Harbor, we dealt a huge blow to Yamamoto's Navy, and that was at Midway. Midway was only 6 months after Pearl Harbor. If you've not seen that film, my gosh, you need to see it, because that's how it sets it up. A huge part of that story is, oh my gosh, it's after Pearl Harbor. How are we going to come back from this? Our service members, their spirits have sunk. How are we going to do this? And it was that determination and that anger that really, really fueled this. And it was 6 months. 6 months. Just unbelievable. But yeah, and that was one of the big, it was the big decisive blow. It's considered one of the most, that Midway film is considered one of the most realistic about naval combat ever made. I'm saying it was just something else. But it's the one, Aaron Eckhart's in it, Woody Harrelson's in it. It was done in 2019. And if you haven't seen it, you need to, because it starts off with that. And Harrelson plays Nimitz. And there's a pivotal scene, and it's right after Pearl Harbor, and they're there in Honolulu, and Nimitz had just arrived, and some of the service members are yelling as Nimitz passes, "Are we going to get him?" And that was considered, don't be yelling at your superiors like that. And one of Nimitz's subordinates in the film had said, should we do something about it? Nimitz was like, no, let him have it. We need to use it. And so within 6 months, just amazing. Can we do that today, though? Think about this. Think about how quickly we turned everything around. I was looking at just the timeline of some of of how quickly some of these ships were turned around. It's just stunning to me. Stunning. What is it? We had at least 3 ships within 3 months, I think. They had turned back around and able to get back out on the sea. I'm speechless. But this, that timeline, it just makes me wonder, would we be able to do that today?